Good morning and Chag Sameach, everybody. So today, I thought speaking a bit about today, about Yom Haatzmaut in maybe a little bit more insights. If you remember, I talked in Shabbat about it and I presented the different positions inside the Orthodox world about Yom Haatzmaut, right? We saw that we can divide it in 4 opinions, from the most extreme against to the most extreme in favor. And I try to present it in a honest way without criticize anyone and just bring in the opinions and show the opinions. Now, I do want to explain a little bit more the opinions that I belong to, or the streams that I belong to, that see the state of Israel as the beginning of the redemption. Reshit tzmichat geulatenu, the beginning of our redemption. And I want to explain it a little bit more. So I will start with, there is a Psalms that Rabbanut Rashit, as you saw yesterday, we had some Psalms before the Tefillah, before Tefillat Arvit. And one of the Psalms is the same Psalms that the Sfaradim say on Pesach, Odu Lashem, Ki tov ki leolam chasdo. It's Psalms number 107 in Tehillim. And it's there it speaks about the topic of this Psalms is the grateful that we should be for different reasons. For example, we say Agomel, when we say Agomel, it's for 4 reasons. The 4 reasons are mentioned in this Psalm. This is the reasons that we say this Psalm. So in the end of this Psalm, we say a verse that is interesting, 2 verses. It says, Ir'u yesharim ve'ismachu, and after v'chol avla kavtzapia, and then mi chacham v'yishmor ele v'yitbonenu chasdei Hashem. So we talk in these verses about 2 kinds of people. The first kind of people is yesharim, and the second kind of people is chacham. We have yashar and we have chacham. The yesharim roim, ir'u yesharim, they see, and the chacham is itbonen. What is itbonen? It's like in deeper insights. Itbonen is like contemplate, trying to understand more. So we say that the yesharim are seeing, only seeing, and they're already happy. Iru yesharim ve'ismachu, and they're happy. But the chacham, he should contemplate, look deeper. And then he understand chasdei Hashem, the kindness of Hashem. So what is the difference between chacham and yashar? It doesn't mean that chacham can be yashar or yashar can be chacham, but it's 2 kind of characters, right? Yesharim, I look on the different translations here, and I didn't find something that I really look, because in the internet you can find 7, 8 translations of the Tanakh, even more. So most of them translate like righteous, or honest, or just, and here it says upright. I'm not sure about the meaning of upright. All of these translations are right, but not exact. I mean, when we say Adam Yashar, for example, in doing business, what does it mean that he is Yashar? That he's honest. You can trust his word. Yashar is also someone that is saying the truth, or he's straightening what it says. But it's not only that. Yashar is also someone, we can say, that sees the reality, sees the world in a natural, simple way. What does it mean, a simple way? You see straight. You see, Yashar literally means straight. You see the thing straight, without complications, in a healthy way. What I mean, for example, if you ask someone simple, what is good and what is bad, generally will tell you. I mean, for example, it's bad to kill people, it's good to help old ladies cross the street, right? We know this is good, this is bad. It's not very complicated. But when you try to understand in a deeper way, sometimes you can get confused. Like you learn philosophy and ethics, and then there's a question which is not so clear what you have to do. So you lose your natural attitude to the life, right? Towards life. You cannot understand what you see. Sometimes you get confused. And then simple things that you saw before, thought it's simple, it's become complicated. So Yesharim are those who can maintain this natural way of living, or natural way of seeing the world. And they only see the reality, they are already happy. Iru Yesharim, they see, they don't contemplate, just see. You don't have to understand it in a very profound way. You just have to look. You look outside and you are happy. Wow, what a great thing happened. And then there are the Chachamim. The Chachamim, they should להתבונן, they should contemplate, they should try to understand in a deeper way, and they will understand all the wisdom of Hashem, all the kindness of Hashem. והתבוננו חסדי Hashem, meaning that sometimes to understand all the meaning of it, all the deep that you have in that thing that's happened, you need to look a little bit more deeper. So I think also about Yom Haatzmaut, we can talk about these two levels, and I want to start with a simple one. I think that Yesharim, people that are healthy, natural, seeing the world in a simple way, simple not doesn't mean not true, simple and true way, cannot look on the state of Israel and not being happy. Surely we have problems, and like I mentioned in Shabbat, some speaking about the fact that Israel not always do according to the halacha. Okay. And not all the Jews in Eretz Israel are Shomrei Torah mitzvot. Also okay. But how can you be happy when you see the miracle that is the state of Israel? The amazing achievements and accomplishments and develop and progress that the Jews did in the land of Israel. You're talking only about 70, 80 years. And before that, not only the state, that Zionism started before the state of Israel, but if you're talking about 150 years ago, it was a desert. It didn't, anything wasn't there. I mean, it was empty. There were some inhabitants and in one of the third world countries or territories, and it was very poor and few people. And today, you can see as achievements of all the areas of life. Again, I mentioned that this number, I think that today the number is 9 million Jews in the land of Israel. Close to 10. I think, no, it's all the popularity, all the...
Yeah, million Jews.
Oh, yeah, everybody can get that.
Maybe with the Arabs, Yes, I'm not sure about the number, but I tell you one thing that I know for sure. There weren't in the history any time that there were more Jews in the land of Israel than now. There weren't in the history. Talking about the kingdom of David, the kingdom of Shlomo, whatever you want to think, there's no any time in the history that we have so many Jews in the land of Israel. And if you're talking about, for example, Bachurei Yeshivot, let's say about Torah. They are not according to the Torah. Yeah, but nowadays in Israel, the number of Bachurei Yeshivot, again, is the highest in the history. There weren't any time in the history with more Torah than what we have now in the land of Israel. Baruch Hashem, we also have Lakewood and Yeshiva University. I'm not saying that not, but the center of the Torah. The first time from the destruction of the second temple, and maybe even before, because the center of Torah was in Babel for a long time, but the first time in 2000 years that the center of the Torah, the center of the Am Yisrael learning is the land of Israel. These are changes that are huge. You just have to be simple. Don't be too complicated and start to think about, well, but the state, but the government say, and this minister say, just be a simple person and be happy what we have, for what we have now. 100 years ago, if there was a problem with the Jewish community anywhere in the world, they didn't have a place to go. We know about ships with Jews trying to escape from Germany, going all around the world, and no country accepted them.
Even one ship.
So, and now we know for sure, at least that there is a place for the Jews to go. And for example, if the community in Ethiopia had problems, so they sent airplanes to bring them. And we know that in the time of COVID, they brought people to it. I mean, we have home. We have a place that protects us. I'm not talking about redemption, not redemption. It's a simple fact that we have a home, we have independence, and we have a place to go in no matter the circumstances, right? We still, I mean, these are the simple things that we should be happy for them. And when we're happy, the most normal way to say thank you is through the prayers. That's the way we say thank you. That way I say, Baruch Hashem, that we live in this time, that we have this stage, we have this opportunity. Thank you, Hashem. That's all. Saying a little bit Psalms, adding some text or other text. I'm not getting now inside the halachic issue of saying Hallel or not saying Hallel, because we have bracha, so I can understand that some would say you shouldn't say bracha. Okay, let's say this is another discussion. I do say bracha.
things about this being thankful is Hashem owns everything. So what do? The only thing that we have ourselves to give is the time that we have on earth. That's
Right.
ours.
Mhm.
I'm giving to Hashem through prayer.
Through prayer, yeah. So I mean about the Hallel, I give you an example. For example, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, Zichrono Livracha, he wasn't, let's say, a classical Zionist. He was what we call ultra-Orthodox. And he said, we shouldn't say Hallel with bracha. We shouldn't say the bracha in Yom Haatzmaut. But we should say the Hallel in the end of the Tefillah, for example. And we shouldn't say Tachanun in this day. Tachanun is what we say in days that are regular, but in happy days we don't say Tachanun. He said, and I saw him speaking, that we should be so grateful for the fact that we have the state of Israel. And that's like, Yiru Yesharim V'Yismachu. This is a verse that says, Yiru Yesharim V'Yismachu. You should see and be happy and be grateful for that. So you don't want to say bracha, don't say the bracha. Okay, it's another issue. I will speak. If you want to learn the halachic issue, we can learn that, but it's not the issue. The issue is being in a natural, healthy way, watching the reality and being able to say thank you and to be grateful for what we have and what we see. Again, we cannot compare that to any time in our history, at least in the last 2,000 years. I say at least because I think also in the Second Temple, we didn't have this kind of independence most of the time. So if you're going back to the First Temple and not the last years of the Second, so I mean about 2,700, 800 years that we didn't have this kind of thing right now, like we have right now. So this is the first point that I wanted to say. And give another example for that, I think I mentioned it several times already in my 7 months or 8 months here, is what the Gemara say about Chizkiah HaMelech, King Chizkiah. King Chizkiah was one of the righteous kings that we have in our history. He came after a king that wasn't righteous, that did idolatry all around the country, and he became a king, and he decided to clean the land of Israel of idolatry, and he made the learning of Torah common in the land of Israel. He was a very, very righteous king in the days of Yeshaya, the prophet Yeshaya. In his time, so I would say that he was so righteous until the Gemara say he should have been the Mashiach. He is from the house of David. All the conditions that we have in the list that Maimonides wrote about Mashiach, he had. He is from the house of David. He was learning Torah. He was righteous. He made Am Yisrael make tshuva. I mean, everybody became close to Hashem again. He did everything. So he was a candidate to be Mashiach. And why wasn't he Mashiach in the end? The Gemara say, well, the Bible tells us, the Tanakh tells us about the king Sancherib. He was the one who took to exile the 10 tribes. So he conquered the land of Israel. He arrived to Jerusalem. He made matzor around Jerusalem. He made a war on Jerusalem. And for some reason, it's not some reason, the Tanakh says that angel came in the night, hit his army, and he had to come back. So what is the meaning of this angel and this miracle? It's an interesting issue, but in the end of the story, it doesn't matter exactly how it's happened, all this army disappeared and went away, went back to his country, and Yerushalayim was saved. Of course, Chizkiah was very grateful, but he didn't say thank you. He didn't say Hallel. That's what the Gemara say. He didn't say Shira. Shira, songs mean Hallel. So and Chachamim explained, there are many explanations. Why? What he thought. I mean, didn't he know that he should be grateful? Of course he knew, and of course he was grateful. Why he didn't? Well, it's another question, but in the bottom line, he didn't say thank you. And that says the Gemara, the only reason that he wasn't the Mashiach. So the history could have finished many years ago, 2,500 years ago. It didn't because we didn't know. Again, I'm not just judging or criticizing him. He was one of our greatest leader in our history, but it was a good reason enough to not being Mashiach, not complete the process of building our nation. So again, I'm saying in the most simple, natural, healthy way, we should be grateful and celebrate this day in all the meaning that we can celebrate. And now we try to elevate ourselves to the level of the Chacham. מי חכם ויבן אלה, מי חכם וישמור אלה, ויתבוננו חסדי השם. Who is a wise who can keep that and contemplate the kindness of Hashem? And to understand a little bit in a deeper way, we should try to define what is redemption. We're talking a lot about redemption. We want redemption. We want Mashiach. We want that the future, we talk a lot about the future. We've seen the tefillah, and we asked, will we build Jerusalem? Jerusalem is built or not built? Have you been in Jerusalem recently?
Yeah.
It's not, it's, well, Jerusalem is built? Yeah, I mean, we say in the tefillah, please build Jerusalem. Bnei Yerushalayim. Bnei Yerushalayim.
You take a look on Har HaBayit.
Where is it? Yerushalayim is built? It's built. Why do we keep asking for that? If it's built? Because it's not built, like I said, Har HaBayit, we don't have Bet Mikdash, it's not complete. But hasn't it started to be built? I mean, you can see Jerusalem now and see, I mean, if you want to buy an apartment in Jerusalem, you have, well, yeah, a lot of money. So, but what is the meaning of redemption? So if, again, we look on the Tanakh and we see about redemption, we see talking about going back to the land of Israel, check. Returning to our independence, check. Not completely, again, but we are talking about process. The process is something happening. You can't say that, but what is the definition? It's how to define exactly the redemption. We're talking about, for example, Mashiach. And then we talk about Olam Haba, and we're talking about Gan Eden. All these terms are the same. And how would the Mashiach would come? How would we recognize him? We talked in Shabbat 2 weeks ago about the false Mashiach, Shabtai Tzvi. So comes someone, and most of Am Yisrael believed he was a Mashiach. So you come one day, and someone say, "I am Mashiach," and everybody go. Let's say I'm telling you today. Yesterday night, Hashem came to me and told me that I'm the Mashiach. Do you believe me? He told me. You send me to the hospital, right? See what's happened with you. How?
Yeah.
What are the conditions?
What are the conditions?
Yeah.
They predict something that happens.
No, this is prophets. This is prophets.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yes, yes. So Mashiach is not this condition. Yeah, the prophet. If I say, well, I didn't tell you that Hashem told me the Mashiach, but I told you that Hashem spoke with me last night. Do you believe me?
The house of David.
Yeah, that's right. So these are the conditions of the Mashiach. He needs to know the Torah.
Yeah.
He needs to be from the house of David. He needs to bring all the Jews to the land of Israel. He needs to make all the Jews complete the Torah, being Shomer Torah Mitzvot. He has to win the wars. He has to build the temple. So the Rambam has a list of requirements for being Mashiach. But the Geula, like said, the same Rambam in the same chapter say, we don't know exactly how it would be. Mashiach would come before Tchiat HaMetim or after Tchiat HaMetim. Tchiat HaMetim, the revival of the death. And the temple would be before Tchiat HaMetim, after Tchiat HaMetim, before the Mashiach. Mashiach is going to do Tchiat HaMetim. It's very mixed. And there are some midrashim that say Hashem will build the third temple. Other midrashim say that we will build the third temple. So all the situation about the future redemption are not very clear. I mean, we can start learning it and start to understand, but it's not something that it's written. We don't have halachot of how exactly the redemption would be. But there are some rabbis that wrote about it. One of them is Maharal. So have you heard about Maharal of Prague?
I visited in Prague.
Okay. Okay, so Maharal was an important rabbi in Prague, and there's a legends about him, about the golem, right? Anyway, it's not clear if it wasn't, but he was for sure. What we know for sure that he wrote books, that's for sure. And that he was a Mekubal, and he was a great Chacham, and knew a lot of Torah, and he was one of the most important thinkers, we can say, philosopher and Kabbalist of his time. And he wrote in one of his books about the books is Netzach Israel, he talked about what is Galut and what is Geula. Because he say, you can define things from their opposite. For example, if you see black, you can understand white. If you don't see black, it's harder to see. We talked about it when in Pesach, right? מתחיל בגנות, מסיים בשבח. We start the Haggadah with bad things, and then we continue to the good thing. Why? Because of the bad, you can understand better the good. Only because of the bad, you can understand better the good. When you understand, because if you really just live naturally in a good situation, you cannot even understand or imagine how lucky you are to live in this situation. So when you understand what's meaning to be in a bad situation, then you can understand and be grateful for the good. So in the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, we should start from the bad, and by that understand the good. He said the same we should say about Galut and Geula, the redemption and the Galut. How can we understand redemption? What is the meaning of redemption? We should look on the opposite. The opposite of Galut is Geula. They have also the same root, Gala, Gaal. It's two letters are the same, Gimel Lamed, Aleph and A change places and change between them, Aleph and A, Gaal and Gala. Yeah, but they are very similar words that mean the opposite. It can happen in Hebrew sometimes. There are some example of that. And so he said, if you really want to understand what is the redemption, you should try to understand what is the galut, what is the exile, what is the meaning of the exile. And then he brought a midrash that point about three things that are the definition of galut, of exile. The first thing is not being in our land. This is one thing. The second thing is being dispersed in different places, many different places. And the third aspect is not being independent, right? Not having independence. I ask you, and where is Kiyum Torah Mitzvot? It doesn't mention it as one of the signs. If you, I mean, we are talking about the Mashiach. We said before we should make everybody be in Shomer Torah Mitzvot. And we hope the Mashiach will build the temple and everybody will make tshuva and we learn Torah. He doesn't mention it as one of the 3 points of the definition of Galut and Geula. He said, not being in our land, not being together in one place, and not being independent. These are the 3 definitions, the 3 points that define Galut. And now, if we're talking to that, we're looking on that, what is the opposite of that? The opposite of that is being in our land, all together and independent. Does the state of Israel answer these 3 requirements? Starting. It's not completely, but it started. We cannot, well, again, the first time from the exile that we have almost half of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. It's interesting here. Surely the population in Israel is a greater Jewish population in the world. It's again the first time from Bar Kokhba, right? So here, nowadays there are no any other country that has more Jews than the land of Israel. I think that if you're talking about cities, New York has more Jews than any other city in the world.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, New York. But Jerusalem is not far away from it. And here it's go up and here it's go down. Right?
Actually, Brooklyn has quite a bit more, 1.6.
1.6 in Brooklyn and not alone.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Lately, Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv is less, but
Yeah.
Tel Aviv is not the biggest. Jerusalem is the biggest city in Israel.
Brooklyn,
Yeah.
it's one of the boroughs.
So New York has 10% Jews.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
Yeah. New York City has about 1.85, but in Brooklyn alone.
It's like a neighbor.
Anyway.
Somebody come out, we need you for a minute.
And
Yeah. Again, so we leave New York now for now. But what I'm trying to say,
7 million Jews in Israel, and I think US has about 5.5.
yes. So for sure now, the biggest population in the Jewish population in Israel, in the world, is in Israel. But it's not yet half of the Jews in the world, because there are around 16, 17, depends how you count and who count, but between 16 to 17 million Jews in the world, and only 7 or 8 in Israel. I think it's personal belief, but I don't have a proof of that, that when we have majority of Jews in the land of Israel, there are some halachic differences. So about Trumot U'Masrot and Shemitah, it may change some halachic questions. But apart from that, I think we're going to see changes in the world. I don't know what, but it's a belief, a mystical belief, that when we have the most of the Jewish people in the land of Israel, changes are going to happen. Like exactly when we have 600,000 Jews in the land of Israel, what's happened? We got a state, right? The first time it was in the time of the
like 47,
in 48 there were 600,000 Jews in the land of Israel. In 67 there were 600,000 men in the land of Israel. You know that 600,000 is a number of men of when they went out from Egypt.
Yeah.
So something happened when we have interesting numbers in the land of Israel. So I think that also something would happen for good, and I'm sure for good, when we have the majority. But again, returning to the Maharal, we can say for sure that we started, the returning to the land of Israel has started. No one says it's going to happen in one day, right? There are some verses that are talking about flying on the wings of the Agilas. How do you say? No, eagles, yes, yeah. In Spanish it's águilas. Eagles on the wings of the eagles. Okay, it's prophecy. It can be something symbolic. It's not to be literally. And yeah, we know that many came on the wings of the eagles, of the airplanes from different places of the world, right? So the returning to the land of Israel has started. The fact that we all together, no, we are also around. We're still around all the world, even in Edmonton. But few of us, but again, we concentrated, right? We come together, we come closer to be in one place, right? There are still like people like us that are still late in our journey, but in the end we will arrive there. But for sure, the process is undeniable. You can deny that it's coming to there, it's going to this situation. And the independence, also, it's not fully, we depend in United States, maybe in many minutes. No, I don't think you can. It's a thing that you used to say in Israel. Once the United States decided, we won't be able to exist. I don't think so.
No.
The state of Israel was established when United States didn't help and didn't send weapons to the war. It's not the same situation right now. But I'm trying to say our independence is not complete, but it's quite complete. It's close to that. It's not the house of David yet. Bibi Netanyahu is not David HaMelech, right? And not talking about the other prime minister that we have recently. But the state as a state is independent, as many other states in the. So we can say for sure that the three aspects that the Maharal mentioned as the signs or as the component, the ingredients of the state of the galut, of the geula, right, of the redemption, are happening. Not until the end, not completely, but they are happening. And like I said before, so what Maharal didn't care about doing Torah mitzvot, didn't care about learning Torah, yeah, but he just didn't say it's going to be in the beginning of the process. The beginning of the process starts with these three aspects, and these three aspects has begun. That's the reason we say this is Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu. It's the beginning. It's the starting of our redemption. And nobody say you have to wait with a thank you until the end of the process. You can start saying thank you in the beginning of the process. We say Hallel in Pesach when we start going out from Egypt, and we say Hallel in Shavuot when we receive the Torah. Pesach without Shavuot is meaningless, almost meaningless. We need to arrive to get the Torah, but we start with independence. So in Pesach, we got our freedom, like in Yom Haatzmaut, and we go in the way until we will arrive to get also the Torah. We're still in the way, in the Sfirat HaOmer, in the day, and it's interesting that Yom Haatzmaut is in Sfirat HaOmer. The month of Iyar represent being between, in a process, between Pesach and Shavuot, between our freedom, our material freedom, or physical freedom, to our spiritual freedom, which will be we're receiving the Torah. So we are in the way, but again, also the way is important. And now the last thing I want to add about it. So why it's like that? Why the state of Israel is not religious? Why we don't see that the prime minister is with a bird and the big kippah and the hat? What?
Everybody fight about it.
what-
When he visits the hotel. he does
Yeah,
it.
when he visits the court. Yeah, so there's an interesting explanation about that. I mean, Rav Kook didn't see the land of Israel, the state of Israel. He died, he passed away in, I think, 35 or 36 before but he saw or analyzed all the process of redemption, and he spoke about the independence that are going to come, etc. And he explained something about the Zionist movement, not about the state of Israel, but the Zionist movement. He said about it that it's like building the body, right? If you first build the body and then you put the soul. You can see that in several examples. For example, in the prophecy that we read in Pesach about Chazon Ha'atzamot HaYeveshot, if you remember the dry bones. Well, we talked about it one Shabbat, right? It's the prophets was brought by Hashem to a valley, and he saw the valley was full of dry bones. And Hashem asked him, would these bones can live? Or can this bone live? Would this bone live? And he said, I don't know, you will say. And then Hashem say, the prophet says that he saw a wind come from Hashem and the bones start to connect to each other and to put flesh on them and to put skin on them. And they became again bodies, complete bodies, but not living yet. So Hashem asked, would these bones or these bodies live? And again, the prophet say, you know, it's not it's not for me to answer. And then it says that spirits come from Hashem and got inside these people and they start living. And then Hashem says, these dry bones are the house of Israel, the Israeli nation. So it's for sure some kind of prophecy about the redemption, about the revival of the death, about the future. Yeah, Yechezkel. But the question here, why is it two process? Why is it two steps? He could make them live from the beginning. We can see that there are two stages. The first stage is building the body. And when you build the body, you should concentrate in it. So if you are too, again, confused or concentrate in the spiritual matters of the nation, you won't be able to build the body correctly. So it's interesting that the body was built by people not religious, or at least most of them. Many religious also participate, but it wasn't the issue. It wasn't the what we are talking about. We are talking about now building our country, not about learning Torah. So that's the way you build a strong body. After you had a strong body, then you can put a spirit in it, a soul in it. And this is the second part when I think now we are growing, all the word of the Torah, of learning of yeshivot is coming stronger and bigger and greater and more amplified and extended. So this is the building the soul. We are in the process of building the soul, but it's not completed yet. We are in the way. And another example for that, again, it's like a little child is growing up, right? When a little child is born, he's not doing anything, just eating and sleeping, just taking care for his body, right? But we believe in him. If we knew that he's going to stay like that all the time, it would be very sad. But we believe that he is going to grow up, start learn how to speak, start learn how to understand, and then build something more than eating and sleeping, hopefully, right? So we believe him when he's small, and we give him the time and the education, and we invest in him, that he will grow up to an educated, decent person, man. So also with the state, we say, okay, it's starting with sleeping and eating, starting with building the body, starting with having a solid base to the Mashiach. The Mashiach will come, he will also complete building this body, and will also help complete building the soul inside this body. So again, it's not exactly, of course, all the parabolas are not exactly the same thing. The idea is, yeah, something has started. All these 3 points of Maharal has started to happen. The body is happening. Living in the land of Israel is a mitzvah. It is a mitzvah from the Torah. to live in the land of Israel. And helping Jews is a mitzvah, and protect the Jewish people is a mitzvah. All of the things are part of the Torah, right? It's not perfect, again, and we have a lot to do more, but it's a start of a process, and that also the Chacham that is mitbonen, is contemplating, is trying to understand in a deeper way, can see that the hand of Hashem is involved here. How a dead nation, almost completely destroyed and eliminated by their enemies, become an independent country in 5 years. It's a miracle. It's the hand of Hashem that was involved in all of that. How a nation that wasn't independent during 2,000 years suddenly returned to be. There's no any other example of that in the history. So it's a miracles process. Miraculous process. And being simple person and healthy person, we can see that, and being wise and deeper insights also can give us the same results. It's a very special day and happy day, and we celebrate and we have to be happy in this day. So Chag Sameach, Yom Haatzmaut Sameach.
I see that people fighting now this agenda. In the group, they don't want to finish the job of building the body. In the other group, start other process.